everyone, and welcome back to the second edition of what we are calling Midnight Mutterings. I've arrived at Rapture's, and we've gathered the woodpile so that we can sit here in the lovely weather and have a nice discussion around the fire. There are a lot of things have happened since we last recorded an episode, both politically, socially, and in our personal lives that we've thought you might want to hear about. And we're going to open hearing about some of the adventures of the Negro in the dark down by where Rapture is. He's told me he has a very interesting little story from the morning.
Yeah, so I won't get into detail why I was out, but I'll just say it was for more legitimate reasons, perhaps, than the gentleman I'm about to describe. Yeah, I was with my wife, and we were exiting my neighborhood. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about a suburbs that's kind of away from the trouble of the city, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter anymore, does it? It was early, so it was still dark out. And, along the sidewalk is strolling this man of black derivation, and he had the requisite shirtless attire going, and he also was carrying with him a satchel of some sort. And when he saw our car, he started running, and then he ducked into our neighborhood. And this is just like the kind of stuff I see every day, virtually. And so I turned to I was like, "Did you see that guy?" I said that to my wife, and she's like, "Oh, well, maybe he lives here." And I'm thinking, oh yeah, because Lord knows I can't count the times I've been running around in the dark with no shirt at like 5 a.m. carrying a bag. This is just stuff everyone does.
It was his to placate one of our listeners. Perhaps it was his unofficial Yang bag. He procured himself $1,000 through some means and was just looking for a place to keep it and or get more.
Well, he's probably taking out a payday loan on that because Yang is in the presidency. Yet, at least. Fingers crossed.
It's really funny. It's fine. It's funny you mention, the Negro in the dark, if you will, especially in, of course, like your more suburban neighborhood. I'll never forget when I still lived in the U.S. and I was working at a McDonald's. So I lived in a small Midwestern town, about 4,000 people. But 15 minutes away was an even smaller Midwestern town of 1 million people. Or 1,000 people, right? So their only fast food restaurant was a McDonald's, and my family were good friends with the owner, so I worked there. And, you would never, ever, ever, for years and years, see blacks in the area I lived in. There just weren't any. Except for when you were opening or closing this damn McDonald's. Because the way the procedure works is you can't go outside or go into the building or exit your car if there's someone else on the property who doesn't work there when you open or close. And there was always, without fail, once a week, maybe twice a week, some random black just plodding around the parking lot for no reason at all.
Well, you said something interesting, like, because we had actually just briefly discussed this, and I'm like, let's talk about that. So, and you said how you had worked at McDonald's for 2 years or something, and I was thinking, kind of like about dog years, how like 1 year in a human's life is like 7 dog years or something. It's kind of like the same thing for a McDonald's employee,
yes,
the things you see in 1 year of employment at McDonald's is probably equivalent to the shit someone sees over 7 years of normal life.
It truly is. I got about 15 years worth of life stories at that McDonald's. In fact, if we want to continue with the Negro story, I had a black manager in this town of 1,000 people where you never saw a black except for this damn McDonald's. I had a black manager. And she had a white name, but for the purposes of this story, I will change her name to something more appropriate.
Can I ask? Go ahead.
I was going. Her name in the story will be Crackhead Isha. But please,
Crackhead Isha. Oh, that's I think that's a royal African name.
Yes, I believe it's Nubian royalty.
I was going to ask, is she one of these blacks that like commutes into a white area to work in a more pleasant environment or something? Because I see that all the time. Like, go ahead.
No, she was. I mean, it's a 45-minute commute to the nearest black city. So I mean, she could have if she wanted to, but no. So she worked in a basically a village, and lived even more rural. She lived like 20 minutes away in an extremely rural white farming area. She had 5 kids, every single one from a different daddy. One of them from a white daddy.
Well, see, that's the thing, is that all of our statistics are like, oh, well, blacks are, their population isn't increasing, and as a percentage, and you know what? They're all having like 5 kids. I don't know. I see something different than what the statisticians see.
I mean, their population does grow. It's just percentage-wise, it doesn't.
Those kind of statistics can be misleading, though.
And so many of them get shot.
Oh yeah, well, I mean,
so crackhead Isha here was.
Darwin was right, I guess. I think.
Yes, she could be. She was a very nice lady most of the time, but she was also freaking crazy. I remember one day, it was a white trash couple pulled up to make the drive-through order window. And just so everyone who listens might not know, at least in American McDonald's, and Swedish ones as a matter of fact, when you speak into the speakers to order your food in the drive-thru, everyone in the restaurant hears you in the back. Unless you're up front taking orders, everyone can hear the people talking and ordering food. And this couple is just arguing with each other, screaming and hollering, and Crackhead Isha runs to the back and opens the door, and she asks them to stop arguing in her drive-thru. And the white gentleman told her to, go fuck yourself, lady. So she runs up to their car and kicks their door, and she's, let's fight. You want to go? And she's the only manager at this McDonald's, so our manager is trying to instigate a fight with a big crackhead white dude. And Crackhead Isha is tiny herself. I mean, she's just a little scrawny 50-something black woman. Well,
did she have the thing of French fry grease? Hot French fry grease? Because that can really even the odds.
Yes, as we saw from the Pancake House.
Yes, in the previous video. If you aren't aware of that story, feel free to check out our first installment.
I highly recommend everyone go watch that episode. If only for that part, it was extremely funny. So, the blacks never cease to to give us entertainment. I distinctly remember my first experience seeing a black, because when I was born in Sweden, there weren't any where I lived, and I left when I was 8. So they kind of showed up while I was gone. But in the States, I distinctly remember the first time I ever saw a black that my mind registered. And we were going down to visit the Polish side of the family, which has been in America for a while. We were going down to Detroit, the city, to visit them. And we were still in the beautiful suburbs of Detroit, which are they are sprawling, but they're spread out. There's a lot of greenery. They're very gorgeous areas. And it was this very rotund, short, black woman with the angriest face you ever saw, carrying an extremely long crowbar, just plodding down the road.
So your first experience was attraction.
I don't know. We might have to get Ted on here to judge the appearance of this woman. But she is just plodding down the road with this angry determination. And we were on the opposite side of the road as her. And of course, she's fat and slow, so she didn't do anything to our vehicle. But any vehicle that came the other way, she would stick the crowbar out into the road, like trying to hit the car or catch the car on her crowbar. Which, to me, is just insane because one would think a car going 50 miles an hour down the road you catch with a crowbar, lady, you're screwed. But of course, this didn't register in her mind. She was just going damage to white folks' cause, right? And this is
yeah, but I mean, we've all done that, right? We've all been plodding along the sides of the street with crowbars, hitting vehicles.
Right.
That's just a part of everyday life.
Yeah. Yes, it is. That is right. I am being a racist here, aren't I? So speaking of everyday life, we had to suffer through watching the Democratic debates that happened the 26th and the 27th. I stayed up early in the morning, Swedish time, to listen and watch these debates. We both watched the whole first one, and then I watched the whole second one because you were busy with the family engagement, and I can't blame you for opting out by that point. They were
honestly, they were trying my stamina, my mental stamina. The first one, I was like 40 minutes in. I was just like, my God, tell me this doesn't go on 2 hours. And
they went from 9 to 11 your time.
I just couldn't take anymore. I mean, I suffered through most of the first one. The second one, I only saw bits of, and I'm under the impression that I'm under the impression the first one was more entertaining, but I don't know. You can perhaps give your impression.
Right. So I want to start with the first one, of course. And the big thing that for both of us and for anyone else we talked to was the damn Spanish. They were all planning Spanish reveals. So we had Beto, which, by the way, is not his real name. Beto was a nickname given to Mr. O'Rourke by his father, hoping that if he ever ran for office in Texas, apparently this is a Hispanic nickname. This Hispanic nickname would give him some street cred.
Oh, Jesus. I didn't even know that. I mean, it's a weird name, yes, but I didn't know that aspect.
So he goes by Beto O'Rourke because it is a Hispanic nickname that they think helps him in running for office. So, he was the first one to speak Spanish, and I'm gonna put the link in the description to this lovely little video that was made when Beto starts speaking Spanish. Cory Booker, who was the only black on the first stage, his eyes got really wide and he just looked shocked.
Was that zoom in? Was that because it does this dramatic zoom in on Cory Booker's like shocked face, and was that like video editing or was that the actual like news?
I don't actually remember. I think it was video editing. I don't think the debate televised crew did that, but I could be wrong. I'll have to go back and look. But it was so funny. And at first, I made the comment to Rapture in Skype that, all the white boomers watching this are going to be upset that Beto is speaking Spanish. But look at Cory, he just looks totally blown away. My impression of his facial expression was like, nigga, what you doing?
Well,
I can't understand you.
The black pill in all of this is that he had the shocked face not because he was appalled at Beto O'Rourke speaking Spanish, but that Beto had beaten him to using Spanish.
To speaking Spanish, yes.
And that's that's the bad
Cory, was Cory the last one to do it? Because I think it went Beto and then Julian, who actually is a Hispanic, though he has like a weird like little gremlin look to him. And then while we're on the looks of Julio, he looks just like
who's that guy from the first Star Trek, the Asian guy, Captain Sulu or whatever?
Sulu. He's Japanese, but yeah, you're right. They do kind of look alike now.
They look exactly alike. It's really weird. But no,
I wonder if Julian is gay.
Probably. I mean...
Well, the guy who played Sulu, whose name is totally escaping me, is a gay, and very involved in the gay community.
Yeah, I actually did a video on that guy.
George Takei.
And, I had an old video on him. But, I know that the moderator for MSNBC, Jose Ballard, he... Actually, I kind of like that he did this because I mean, while I find the use of Spanish in an American debate absolutely insulting, regardless of context, he did ask Beto O'Rourke a question in Spanish, possibly trying to catch him off guard and test his Spanish. But either way, it's a complete insult. And so when he asked this question to Beto O'Rourke and then Beto O'Rourke answered in Spanish, like having to sit there as an American and not know what they're talking about in my own fucking country for a presidential election is just enraging. Like, these people
Well, right,
are traitors.
They cut 70% of the population, 54% of which is the native population of this country, out of the discussion the moment they start speaking Spanish. I mean, the only Spanish I know personally are the important words: taco, burrito, enchilada, siesta. I mean, I know the important stuff, and they obviously weren't talking about the important stuff because I could not understand a word.
And we have the recipes, so yeah.
Yeah, that's right. They taught us how to make it. They can leave now.
The thing is, I was just so mad at this because what's not being said here, they tried to make it look like, oh, they're open-minded, they're so articulate because they speak multiple languages. They learned that language. I don't know, perhaps someone in Texas, perhaps they do it out of some grim sense of necessity, but for the most part, they're speaking that language, they're learning that language to use it against the Native American population, Native space American population, the white population. They're using it in a purely traitorous mode.
It is almost, you're right, it is almost malicious. It is, when they spoke Spanish, it was all right, white people, sit down, be quiet. I have to address only the Hispanic population. You people don't factor into this. Sit down, shut up. I'm talking to the Hispanics. That's exactly what it was. It was telling everyone who didn't speak Spanish and basically telling white people what I just said: sit down, shut up, don't pay attention. This doesn't concern you. Don't worry about what I'm saying to the Hispanics. They could have been promising the Hispanic population, uncontrolled immigration. They weren't. That's not what they said, but they could have been doing that.
Well, they're for it. They're all. I mean,
they are all for it. That does bring us to the next point, and this goes across both debates. Everyone in both debates, except for that Bennett fella, who I had never heard of, congressman from, I believe, Illinois. I could be wrong, but Bennett was his name. He was standing next to Eric Swalwell. Or not Eric Swalwell. Bennett was in the first debate. I forget who he was standing next to now. He was standing next to Eric Swalwell. And he was the only one who did not raise his hand about decriminalizing border crossings.
Fucking based.
So, I know, and that's so sad that we even think about saying that, He's still part of, a party, the one party that's worse traitors than the first party. And we have to take solace in the fact that while he loves illegals and Hispanics and turning the country brown, at least he doesn't want to make it legal to cross the border whenever you want. Oh, great. and he's Jewish. That guy is Jewish.
Yeah, see, that's the kosher sandwich. It's like the one guy who might be appearing to stick up for your issues is actually probably like an Israel shill and going to be all pro-war in the Middle East and whatnot.
Right, exactly. So, I have a couple really choice things that I had written down. I have 8 pages of notes, but I whittled down to really what I want to talk about. And the first big one, right at the start of the debate, after O'Rourke spoke Spanish, Cory Booker took the opportunity to break into this monologue that the moderator team allowed him to go on about how black people and brown people and, natives and immigrants are, quote unquote, average Americans. That these people who right now, this crack-addicted, drug-smuggling, 17-year-old former gang member Guatemalan running across your border, Rapture, as we speak right now, is an average American. You're not an average American. I mean, you're a privileged white man. But that dude right there is living the American dream. And Corey went on for about 60 seconds about this, which is double the time they're supposed to give people. And I remember writing this quote down going, holy crap, these people don't even care about the white vote. You know, I saw article after article after article about how the Democrats are trying to court the white vote. The Democrats are trying to court the white vote. Well, if this is trying to court the white vote, I would really hate to see what it looks like when they're not trying to court the white vote.
Yeah, when they just give in to, the interests of non-white minorities. Forgive me, I had to space out a bit there because I was dealing with some family stuff here. So I can't comment in too much detail about Cory Booker's story. But, I mean, I get the gist that all of these people, like, they view, not only do they view white America as the opposition, but they view us as a dwindling political power in regard to our democratic capability. And so, yeah, they've cast their lot in with non-Americans, basically. That's what the country's about now.
We're almost a minority in the Democratic Party. In 2013, white people were still 67% of the party, and now they're 53% as of 2018. I'm sure by 2020 it'll be below 50%. And it's not that these white people are dying. I mean, some of the boomers are, thank God, but most of these white people are either disengaging from politics totally because they can't stomach the Democrats, or they're moving to a nominally Republican side. So there's a very small quarter of a white pill right there.
Well, the thing about that is, yeah, I can imagine a lot of like white liberals kind of just saying, this is too much, this is crazy, I don't want anything to do with this. But then at the same time, they already have solidified in their heads that, we're neo-Nazis and, Lord knows what they think about the right in general. And I say the right as in basically opposition to the progressives. Basically, they might just drop out of the political scene or potentially. And then when you talk about the boomers, I always like to point out that the final farewell FU from the boomers will be that we will have completely lost demographic majority with their passing, and that's what they want. They're totally happy with that. That's the inheritance they want to give us, is that, hey, you're screwed now that we're not here.
Even if they don't directly go for it, I mean, they've been told for 2 decades now that that's going to happen. And they just sit there and they shrug, and they say the line that I hate more than almost anything in the world, which is, oh, well, I'll be dead.
Oh, yeah, Sargon of Akkad, he said that earlier on, like a number of years ago. That was his initial stance. Now, I think he's probably evolved since then. But, yeah, it's kind of it's a disgusting fallback. Like, if you ever pin them, like I'm talking about boomers here, on any issues that basically they've believed since, the summer of love in 1967, if you pin them on any of these issues, they will fall back to that, we're only here temporarily, blah, blah, blah. Because they really believe that everyone is, this is a white supremacist thing, is that they really believe that everyone will understand that we do it best, and that it doesn't matter your race or your culture or anything, or your language, it all doesn't matter, because they'll all assimilate to this American exceptionalism. And
right, so
yeah,
the way I've put it in our private conversations is, the blacks aren't there yet, the Muslims aren't there yet, the Hispanics aren't there yet. It doesn't matter that for the blacks, the yet has taken 300 plus years. For the Hispanics, it's going on 70 plus years. For the Native Americans, it's 400 plus years. It does not matter that we're getting into the frickin' millennia here. It's yet. And it might not happen when all the boomers are dead, and they're fine with that, because in their mind, all the Hispanics are going to be Republicans one day. Every single damn one. All the blacks are going to be family people one day. Every single one. You know, this Yet-ism that boomers have ingrained in them, and you mentioned their attitude toward, you know, being intransigent, which really is a tactic that they learned from our Levantine guests, which is you corner them on a topic they can't escape from. You basically just ideologically bludgeon them, which for doing to a boomer is not hard. And a lot of time, they might even concede your points. But by the end of the conversation, or when you get back to them, they pretend it didn't happen, pretend you didn't make legitimate points. Their attitude has not changed a single iota, and you're still a racist scumbag. And it's a tactic they've learned from our resident Levantine population.
Well, I really like that term Yet-ism, and that made me think of a Yeti. So maybe we could call them Yetis. It's kind of an interesting term because and this is the same thing that centrists and what's the thing Sargon came up with? The liberalists, like they're all Yetists or Yetis or whatever, because Yet-ism does encompass more than the boomers. It is the skeptics. It's the alt-right. It's a huge portion of the controlled opposition. It's like everyone but us. Everyone.
It is everyone but us. You're right.
Oh man, that's some funny stuff, because I just find it so interesting that that's actually a more definitive form of supremacism or supremism. Is that they really believe that everyone's just going to magically change, you know? And we might as well put ourselves in a horrible demographic situation while we're waiting for them to change, because it won't. It's going to happen eventually. So it doesn't matter if white people become a minority and have no democratic power, because all these other people are going to change. So it's just a matter of time. So it's not about having to win elections within a democracy based on your racial demographic. It's about just waiting for these people to, go into a cocoon and come out libertarians or whatever.
Right. You know, this is something, speaking as someone who's not a native white space American here, a European, you know, American exceptionalism, which I was exposed to in the American school system. American exceptionalism, if it was a totally white country still, is something I understand. But American exceptionalism in the modern context of pushing it on everyone, no matter if they're brown, black, or frickin' purple, fools, and I would argue fooled, the boomers, the Xers, and a big portion of the millennials into this, oh my God, everyone thinks like this. Everyone loves the flag. Everyone loves the anthem. You know, we're not counting Antifa and the gays here, but everyone loves the flag, the anthem, the car brands. America, rah, rah, rah. We won the Second World War, rah, rah, America. And the boomer, especially, and I would argue a large portion of the politically neutral Xer population, thinks everyone thinks like that. Even if they politically disagree with me, even if they do terrible crime, even if they're, you know, a repeat offender black, they love the country, they love the flag, they love everything America stands for.
Yeah, I mean,
And
they see an imam dressed from head to toe in their religious garb, giving them a nasty look. They think there's someone who's about to realize that we do it better, and
yeah, my
welcome,
fellow
welcome,
countrymen.
brother.
Yes, my fellow countrymen. So to get back to the debate here, the first one, interestingly,
Can I mention something? I apologize to.
yeah, go ahead.
You're
Go
really
ahead.
about to launch there, but I just want to say that on this notion of false American identity, it's whoever's holding it. If you're holding a little cheap $1 flag that you can get at Walmart, then obviously we see eye to eye on everything. But beyond that, and we do need to talk more about this language thing in regard to identity. But beyond that, like, I've seen so many asinine things. Like, we have this sense that they're like, or the way people use like terms like identity and community, things like that in a modern context is just asinine. Like, if you buy the same kind of automobile, all of a sudden you're in a community with people who get the same brand of automobile. Like, they are your brothers.
Right.
You're supposed to
either
wave to each other as you pass on the street or something. Like, that's who you have a real soul connection with.
it's consumerism or it's purely geographic area. This comes back to something, I forget what podcast I listened to that mentioned it, and I did the research myself on this national conservatism that's being pushed by the Jews. And they're basically pushing what we for a long time have been calling civic nationalism. Doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter what you look like, your ethnic background. You live in this geographic area that is basically nothing more than an economic unit. So the former country of Sweden, which is now just an economic unit, you need to be very proud of that economic unit. And you need to compete with the other economic units. You're not a Swede, you're not a European, you are a proud member of this economic unit that used to be called Sweden, and you are competing with all the other economic units. And you need to not like them because they're not your economic unit. But you need to love.
But if you move or get a job transfer, then you become part of a different economic unit, and you just embrace that.
Yes, and you need to be proud of it, and you need to be a nominal conservative everywhere you go. But the moment you move economic units, you drop all loyalty to the previous one because you now love the place you work in.
It's like a sports team. Like, obviously we've talked about sports ball and the far right, and Richard Spencer kind of made it famous through some of his speeches. But I just, you see all these constant ads of like they're trying to get you revved up over the local basketball team. There'll be some black guy like shouting like he just scored a basket or something, and like white people and Latino people in the audience going crazy over this person they're supposed to treat as not only a hero but a member of their community. And more than likely this is a person either from there's a good chance they are American, but in quotes, but they're probably from a different region. They're probably only there when they have to be by contract, unless they're in Miami or Los Angeles or New York or something, or possibly Chicago. They're probably only there temporarily. And like, you're supposed to, this person is a representative of your community, even though he looks nothing like you. And, if he wasn't playing sports, he would probably be in prison or something. And he might get there anyway.
He might get there. It's funny you mentioned that. I remember I was visiting in the U.S. during some kind of sports ball picking. I think it was the football picks. I don't know. I don't follow this crap, right? Never have. And my mother is absolutely obsessed with football and baseball. And they're doing the picking for all these kids, and of course, so many of them are black. And my mom was talking about how a couple of them had been criminals in their college years and all this stuff. And the next day I woke up and one of them, he had just been picked for the draft, got shot and died that night. Like, in some kind of drug deal, right? And I'm like, oh my God, These people,
Well, he's got to do something between, college and the pros.
yeah, something between college and then going on to make millions of dollars for chucking around a pigskin, right?
At least he died doing what he loved, which was probably something really shady in a strip club parking lot at 3 a.m.
With his shirt off and then going to hide in your neighborhood.
Yeah, that's probably like his brother or something. But
oh my gosh,
I know it's been kind of distracting, but yeah, a thing about I will say this is that at some point in American history, and this is true for different sports and different countries, but I know for myself, growing up in the Midwest, like professional basketball and collegiate basketball, I followed in the late '80s and early '90s, and there was still enough of an ethnic representation by my people on these teams that I felt like, this was somehow part of my community or my people, but not anymore. I mean, these teams are like all black now. There might be one white player, and I'm starting to think that they only have the white player just to say that they're not just to, avoid the awkwardness of having an all black team. And it's not even that the white players are bad. Oftentimes they're some of the better players on the team, but they just, we have this mentality where we think that blacks are better than us at everything. And sure, in basketball, maybe football, maybe they are, but it doesn't matter. It's like, they can't compete with us in terms of academics, so we have things like affirmative action. But
Western European soccer teams are just like this. I did write down a joke you made. You made while we were listening to the debate, and I was kvetching about the Spanish. And you said right off the cuff, and I just thought the audience would appreciate this. Rapture said to me in the Skype chat, if these people really want to win, they'll just start speaking Yiddish.
Yeah, I mean they're not. They're thinking they aren't ahead of the game. They have to think a few steps ahead, and that's what basically the Republicans are doing. I mean, they're not speaking Yiddish, but they're almost speaking a form of Yiddish by supporting Israel. And
wait until 2024. Wait until 2024. They will be breaking into Hebrew on stage.
Well, they have to do everything kind of on the down low when it comes to that, unless it's just Israel is our best ally and blah blah. Okay, so I've kind of distracted us with the sports ball stuff, but if you have anything else to say, it's fine. Otherwise, by all means, continue from my interrupting of your debate analysis.
Okay, so I'm going to make a comment about Mayor Bill de Blasio here, but I would like to inform our audience so that we don't get news cocked. The millions of protesters in Hong Kong have apparently stormed and taken over their government building and have now stormed and overrun the Parliament of Hong Kong. So some interesting political revolution going on over in Southeast Asia there.
Wow. Hong Kong, that's one of these things that everyone likes to say, oh, English colonizers are horrible. Well, by far the nicest place to freaking go in China is Hong Kong, or at least before this turmoil. And we think of the double-decker buses and it's a beautiful area, and it's probably that way because of the
English,
the British colonies. I don't know if it was technically a colony. I think it was somehow technically different than a colony. I forget how. It's been a while since
it was part of the empire.
Yeah.
Anyway, so moving on from that, by far, who opened the most progressive was Mayor Bill de Blasio. He by far said the most outlandish progressive things, and I wish I had taken more quotes, but we need to be the party of immigrants. He outright said we need to be the party of Hispanics. We need to be the party of black people. And very interestingly about Mayor Bill de Blasio, who the Jews do not like, by the way, because he got rid of all the quote-unquote a lot of the race police policies of the New York Police Department. that was keeping the Jews safe in New York. He got rid of a lot of those discriminatory policies. So they're very upset with him. He's married to a short, ugly negress and has 2 horribly ugly mulatto children. So it's very interesting that this man, who is white and is not Jewish, is advocating the destruction of his own people to be an advantage to his own children. So
yeah, people are always trying to justify their own actions, or in the mixed race situations, the justification for their own existence. And you know, the people that are mixed race have been put in a challenging situation, to say the least. But,
right, and then, you know, that's basically it with the first debate.
Well, let me just say about you know, you see this with Robert De Niro's children and Ron Perlman's children, and I guess De Blasio's children as well.
Is Robert De Niro, he has race mixed children?
Oh yeah, like he's like,
I didn't know that.
He's one of the main ones.
I don't know much about Robert De Niro.
He's he's like in the, you know, he's up there with, what was it, Heidi Klum and Seal, like he's up there.
Oh geez.
But like these children, I mean, it's like they're bringing disco back or something with their hairdos. Like it's awful, like these giant afros. And I mean, I really feel bad for these kids, because I'm not saying this about all mixed race people, but there's something when you mix races with the African race, it tends to, it doesn't really, I don't know. It usually, but the black element's very strong, right? Genetically very strong, and so it is very present, and it doesn't mix so well with other things. So these children.
Well, no,
I think these people are victims. I think they're victims, basically.
They are victims, and I agree. I feel bad for them too. They're generally less attractive, less intelligent, less able. Despite what the mainstream media says, there's no science that supports that people find them smarter and more beautiful.
And despite what Ed Busick says too, with, you know, Sade is, you know, she's kind of attractive, I guess. I don't know. But okay, we can move on to the second debate. But let me just see if there's anything else in the first debate. I don't know. I was so insulted by the first debate, I didn't even really get around to watching the second debate. So, the second debate
was even. I mean, just even. Oh, we should mention in the first debate that Julian Castro shit-tested everyone talking about abortion when he said that we need to remember we can't just have abortion rights for women. We need reproductive justice. And this
reproductive justice, man, the lexicon is just expanding. The next, I'm sitting there. I'm like, what the hell does reproductive justice mean? I mean, so, American Heritage Dictionary, like the new version, is going to have like an extra 2,000 entries or something.
And then put on top of reproductive justice that we need this reproductive justice, not just for quote unquote normal women. We can't forget the trans people.
Yeah, the trans people. I mean, Justin Trudeau's not forgetting them.
Holy crap on a cracker.
Yeah, he was like.
Imagine. I mean,
and there was applause.
No one responded to that.
No, there was applause.
No one responded. Well, the audience responded, but the rest of the stage didn't. They all stood there. They all looked at him because he was the last one to speak on it. No one added it. No one put an addendum in. And they all kind of stared at him like, son of a bitch, he just out-progressived me, damn it.
Cory Booker was trying to work out in his head how to talk about trans people in Spanish. So it took him a while and he wasn't able to comment. But, yeah, it's just, I mean, normal people couldn't see that debate. And, I mean, like, what are the things that come out of that debate? If you're a progressive, the things that came out of that debate are open borders. The U.S. should be invaded by people that don't speak your language. That's a good thing. And baby killing's good. And so is our trans people. And that's it. You know, enjoy the new country.
I made a comment to a friend because, you know, I'm very skeptical about Trump's reelectability. But I made the comment to a friend. I'm like, dude, I can hear people unpacking their fresh MAGA hats. Like, Christ.
Oh, yeah. Like that debate, in my opinion, I mean, I didn't see anybody that, you know, Elizabeth Warren, you know, she kind of comes across as a nice person, but that's it. I didn't see a single, other than that, I guess Tulsi Gabbard she kind of came across as like anti-war, and there was a lot of stuff online, like memes about her online afterwards. So maybe she came out all right.
She is very anti-war. She's very anti-war, and she used to be, until only like 6 or 8 years ago, was a massive homophobe. She wanted nothing to do with the gays. She spoke out against the gays in Congress. Oh, this woman freaking railed against them in the past. You know, now she's changed her position, as she described in the debate.
She actually sounded like a Republican, to be honest.
Well, I can't believe she's pro-gay now. I mean, I personally think she's pretending to do it to get elected, and she's not going to make a shitstorm out of the gays. She's just going to ignore them.
Oh, they all are. I mean, do you think Joseph Biden in 2009 was like, he's just really into, you know, the gay community, so he wanted... But let me just say this. There's one last thing about the first debate, which I almost forgot. But now this was a moderator saying this.
Oh no!
Maybe it might have been the second debate. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Chuck Todd. He was asking a question. How are we going to take the guns back from people that don't want to give them up? So he basically just spat that question out, and no one answered it in terms of like, oh, we should go and you know, raid people's homes or something.
That was the first debate.
Yeah, he threw that, like, they're throwing this question out there, seeing if any of the politicians
will Eric
fight.
Swalwell, the biggest California cock you ever did meet, I bet he lets black men into his bedroom with his wife when he's not there. In fact, I'd bet frickin' money on it.
Probably win some money, yeah.
I know. Someone bet me. I know I'll win money on that. He's the only one who advocated mandatory assault weapon buyback. But he interjected it into the national conversation, and I honestly think that's the only reason he was on that stage. I don't think we already know
he's I was going to say about the buyback, we already know that he's for black men entering your home. So why would you want to prevent that by having weapons to protect yourself?
Exactly. Do not fear the black man, white man. He's perfectly fine. Look at my
he's there to satisfy your
child.
wife.
That's totally my own child. Right, exactly. Biggest cuck who ever did exist, Eric Swalwell.
Trade your automatic rifles in for a home video recorder or something.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, in the second moving on, man, that's funny. Moving on to the second debate, this is coming from a Bernie fan, a former Bernie fan, a quasi Bernie fan, if you will. This is the worst debate performance, and especially the first half of this debate, that Bernie Sanders has ever given, to my knowledge. He shit the bed so terribly on the first question given to him. I was like up shaking my television.
Yeah, you really want him to win. You were all for Bernie. I mean, like, in terms of you think he's going to win. It's not that you're necessarily for him, but you think he is going to win. So I do think he's going to win. And back early 2015, when the election kicked up, I worked not directly for the main campaign. But, oh God, imagine if someone from the Sanders campaign hears this. Christ, I worked in the Michigan level Bernie Sanders campaign coordination for the primary in Michigan, right? And can you explain why you did that really quick for our audience that might question your motives, or perhaps you were different back then?
Number one, early 2015, when I started with that, I was not red pill. I had only just heard of things like Red Ice, and I had listened to one show, and I was aware that these politics existed. And I've never been like a scream you down, shut you up. I was never a scream you down, shut you up SJW. So I was willing to listen to these ideas. And it was about the time in late 2015, early 2016, I forget when the Michigan primary was. Right in there, my full red pilling really kicked in. And by that time, Bernie had won the primary. My work was done. I disengaged politically.
Was that when you were working at McDonald's, or?
Yeah, it was over the same period.
Okay, all these things tie together,
Though most of my time at McDonald's, I was red pilled, right? So when I was with the Sanders campaign, I was not red pilled. By the end of it, I was. So I kind of felt like a little infiltrator. I knew all this shit, but so my red pilling occurred during that time, and Sanders' economic message is something I still basically totally believe in. I don't believe in Bernie Sanders. He's another Levantine guest, but he did so terribly. They asked him very directly, as president, would you raise taxes on the middle class? And Bernie totally ignored the question and went into this ramble about Medicare for all and how you're not going to have a premium, only paying a tax, so it's going to save you a ton of money. And they let him ramble, and they looked at him dead in the face again, and they asked him, are you going to raise taxes on the middle class? And he would not say no. He went into another Medicare ramble. It was the worst I've ever seen Bernie Sanders perform.
Did he seem old or something? Because people talk about.
No, he was deliberately dodging the question, and eventually in his ramble, he admitted, "Yeah, your taxes are going to go up. Oh, your taxes are going to go up." He admitted it in his second portion of the ramble. It was miserable performance by Bernie.
Well, we know that the one thing that Americans care about is taxes. Like everything can be solved by tax cuts and raising of taxes and
changes in your economic unit. We have to change the economic circumstances in our economic unit to make things better.
Yes, everything is numbers, but not racial numbers. Everything is economic numbers.
Yeah, ignore demographic statistics; those don't matter. So then we have a thing that I really enjoyed on the stage. You had Mr. Hickenlooper, the former governor of Colorado, who a left-wing commentator I occasionally listen to refers to as Hickenloopers, the most boring breakfast cereal in the world, which is so true. He railed against. And this was, I think, a dog whistle to white people. It was a terrible one. But he's like, we can't become a socialist country. We can't be a socialist party. The socialists are terrible. The socialists this, the socialists that. Mentioning how, like Bernie wants to give everyone a government job. It was a really incoherent ramble against socialism. So I thought
aren't they supposed to be for socialism? I mean, like these people, they don't even want socialism. They want to go to communism.
Well, anyway, I'm going to ignore that hot take. That debate, though, Pete Buttigieg, who I will henceforth refer to as Mayor Buttplug, Mayor Buttplug is the only one who spoke Spanish, and he only spoke one line of it. This is the cultured gay man who speaks Norwegian, and he speaks French.
That's probably all the Spanish he learned in his one-night stand with the
Latino guy he met at the club. Pratar norska att jag tycker inte om dig. For any Swedish listeners who will understand that one. So Buttplug was the only one who spoke Spanish. Bennett was on the second debate stage. Bennett the Jew. But he was still the only one who would keep border crossings illegal. And then another great quote from Buttplug was, God doesn't smile on family separations at the border. God does not approve of that, because Buttplug fancies himself a Christian, right? And I'm not.
Oh yeah, he's a natural Christian. I mean, obviously.
Right. I'm not a Christian. I was raised a Polish Catholic. I'm not anymore. Haven't been since I was like 11. But my immediate response, and I yelled at the TV, I'm like, oh yeah, because God shines pretty happily upon gays, right?
He's going to shine a little bit brighter than you expect, like with fires of
Right.
divine wrath or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. The freaking fist of God's wrath right up your rectum. So, an interesting side about Mayor Buttplug here is as he's on this stage talking about justice, and, you know, he mentioned the conversation around race in the country. South Bend, Indiana is literally like on fire right now. A white cop shot a black guy, and someone botched part of the investigation. So now there's a new investigation into this investigation. So South Bend, Indiana is like this hotbed of racial tensions right now.
I'm guessing, like, I see that's in rural northern Indiana, and I always had like a romantic vision of
26% black.
It's what percent?
26% black.
Like, how did that happen? Because these must be people like running out of Gary, Indiana, and Chicago or something, right?
Well, that is probably what they are. So the big issue is, right, the city, when Buttplug took over administration of the city, the police force was like 22% black or something. It had a black police chief.
I gotta tell you, being in an area that probably has a similar quote unquote black percentage, it might just seem like 20, or on paper it might be 20%, but it feels like 60%. Okay.
Oh yeah, I agree. That's why white people move. So when Buttplug years ago took over running South Bend, he actually, the police department was extremely corrupt, right? It's run by blacks. They were giving themselves ridiculously high salaries, ridiculously high benefits, insane vacation days. They basically weren't working. So he cleaned up the police department. Well, now years on, they're only 6% of the police department is black, and the blacks in South Bend, Indiana, are basically on the verge of burning the entire city to the ground. And he's hiding in Miami doing a presidential debate. So that shows how apt to lead the
he's probably keeping his finger on the pulse of the gay community in Miami too.
I don't think they keep fingers on pulses.
Yeah, probably in other places. But
so Biden also made another great comment. He made a lot of choice idiot comments. You know, he's a stuttering moron who will drop out. I guarantee it. But Biden says that illegals contribute to the economy so much. Never mind that there's a net like 50 billion shill out to illegals. They pay like $76 billion in taxes, but the U.S. pays at least, and I know this is a criminal understatement, at least $150 billion. And I know that's nowhere near true. It has to be more than that for illegals. But anyway, he claimed that illegals increased the longevity of Social Security and Medicare, which is exactly the same as going, well, white people, we need these brown people to pay your pension and take care of you when you're old. You know, you can't be against this. These people have to take care of us when we're old and dying.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, if you go to the new outlet mall in the outskirts of town, like, who are you going to buy your running shoes from? You need someone to work that position.
Never mind that they created the store artificially to create the job.
Yeah, I mean, you're going there, aren't you? You're consuming there, so
get excited for product.
Yeah, it's just
that's I have one more set of notes here, but I don't know, the prudence of this. Let me find it here.
So was Biden a big flop? Because I heard that he did really bad in the debate.
Oh, Biden always does bad in debates. You know, he's run for president at least two. It might be three other times.
Well, he probably ran a few times before recorded history. So
that's true.
We don't really know how many
You're not
times
wrong.
he's run for president because they didn't have writing.
However, he never does well. Biden he starts off polling really great, and then he will just bloody tank.
Well, this is what
miserably.
happens. This is what I've noticed, and I didn't know this when I was younger, but I've seen this happening in so many elections. That basically the person with the most name recognition will always start out each primary as the number one. They always will. I mean, it makes sense. Whether it's Joel Lieberman in 2004, or or Jeb Bush in 2016. These people, they start out huge and then they just fall away. That's what happens, and I have no doubt that's what's happening with Joe Biden. I said it from the beginning.
So to get to our biggest topic and our focus here at the Politics of Three, at least for Rapture and I, which is race. They had a whole discussion on race near the end of the debate. And Buttplug, talking about, his 6% NIG police force in a 26% black area, admitted, he can't fix the racial animus. He talks about how these police need more bias training and de-escalation training and all of this stuff. And Governor Hickenlooper talks about how in Colorado they have a civilian oversight commission to monitor the police, which in Colorado are overwhelmingly white. And I would love to see the makeup of this oversight commission, because how much do you want to bet it's mostly Hispanics and blacks?
Yeah, I mean, I hear Colorado's being taken over by Latinos, and we know blacks are busy everywhere.
Colorado's going down the shitter fast. But hey, the people who work at Turning Point USA say we're not supposed to care about immigration anymore. That issue's gone,
Yeah, let's talk about tax cuts, or what's like overturning Obamacare or something.
Alterations to the economic life of my economic unit.
Besides, Iran's being really aggressive with our ships that are right next to their borders. So let's focus on things that matter.
Well, they're planting mines. They're planting mines on Japanese ships while Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan, is literally in a room with the President of Iran. The thing that gets me about all of it, and to me the indisputable proof that it is a gay operation, is the U.S. releases this footage of Iranians, quote unquote, removing the mines from the side of the ship, which I totally think is real footage. I think they were doing explosive ordnance disposal, trying to save the ship, right? And the reason I'm convinced of this is, if you're going to pull a boat up next to a ship, slap a mine on it, blow up the mine, and then come back and collect the undetonated ones to cover the evidence, why the hell would you leave the magnetic part that attaches the mine to the ship? If you're trying to cover up the evidence, why leave this huge disc-like magnet on the boat that says, yeah, there was a mine here?
Well,
why the fuck would you do that if you're trying to cover up that you put a mine on a ship?
Well, the other thing I heard, I think I might have heard this from the TRS guys, or perhaps it's Fascination. It might have been a Ethnarch who said this, but he was saying that the kind of mines put on the ship were supposed to be attached below the water level, but they attached them above the water level in this instance so that they could, get video footage of the removal and stuff.
Have the tales of the harrowing survivor. I firmly believe that the Iranians had nothing to do with it, and they were there preventing the ship from sinking. They were removing the mines to be of assistance.
Oh yeah, probably. I mean,
and I actually, on my normie Facebook, wrote this comment about the mine, and I had a boomer family member who lives in the U.S. ride in on her white horse with a blue Star of David in the fur, ride in and tell me that the Iranians are terrible. The Iranians are a threat to the U.S. and a threat to Israel, and we got in. We got in this really long dialectic about Israel, and her whole argument came down to Christian Zionism. And, it had been a long time since I talked to a boomer about this, but it really reminded me how just crazy the boomers are.
Well, yeah, and especially, it varies across different, what's the term, different sects of Christianity or whatever, as to how important Israel is. But that tie, and it's a historic tie. You could say the Jews wrote the Bible and Jesus Christ was a Jew or all this other stuff. It kind of really fills me with some skepticism about the faith in general. That's a whole other conversation, obviously. And I'm not saying that I'm writing off Christianity. Right. I once again, I view us as cultural Christians largely. We get a lot of our morals that we use in our everyday lives from Christianity.
So I can get back to the debate here. Reparations were brought up, but not really commented on a whole lot. Now, Marianne Williamson, who I had never heard of, who is apparently an author. I feel like if I read one of her books, I'd get brain cancer, so I'm not going to do it. She was this short, little, eccentric, weird woman on stage. How she got there, I don't know. But she made several comments about racism and economics. So, she said, the economy, the police, the court system, the prison system are all racist. They're all racist. All of those things white people built are racist. But she doesn't believe the average white American is a racist. She doesn't believe that, she says. But even though the average white American is not a racist, we still owe the blacks reparations. We still owe them a big fat check.
Yeah, because, if these people, if like Deshaun, if he gets enough money, he's going to completely reform himself, and he's going to become an absolute gentleman, and he's going to, go to engineering school, and everything will right itself if we can just make up for slavery with fiscal policy,
Right. And then I really forget who said this, and I didn't write it down, but one of the candidates mentioned, the blacks need reparations, but what about reparations for the gays? What about reparations for the Native Americans? What about reparations for the Hispanics who got deported in Operation Wetback? And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, holy crap, Andrew Yang will never win the election, but all of these people are going to get their Yang bag. The white people aren't, but everyone else is. Everyone will be getting their $1,000 a month except for Whitey.
And Asians. Well, no, they built the railroads, so...
They built the railroads, man. They're going to... the Japanese in internment camps.
Everyone's getting bags except for us.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're the ones who have to pay out for the bags. My God, it was just... Oh. So, a good friend of ours and a big fan of ours wrote this comment about it, and I quoted it because it was so good. He wrote... Paraphrasing Marianne Williamson, I do not believe the average American is a racist, but I do believe every white baby is born owing infinity Gibbs.
Yeah,
the moment you are born, you need to begin cutting a check. Rapture, you have a young daughter. She is the most violent, vehement racist I have ever met. She's never paid a dime in reparations.
Yeah, the thing that disturbs me about her is that you look into her eyes and she's just so full of hate and animus. And, that needs to be addressed.
It does.
And it will once you start earning money.
You can't float the reparations bill for her. She has to do it on her own. It doesn't matter how young she is.
She has to atone for this,
She does. She was born privileged and racist. Never mind that your daughter will never be able to get into college, will never get a loan for college, won't get a favorable home loan, will be overlooked for every job she ever applies for.
Well, I really want her to go to college because I want her to cut off her hair and become a lesbian and hate men and, basically hate herself. So I'm hoping that she can get higher education. But, we may just have to pay for it entirely out of pocket because, the most of the loans. Well, no, you can't get loans. You can't get loans. She can get loans. I mean, she can become a debt slave for the rest of her life.
That's true. That's true. Her Levantine overlords would never cut her out of the opportunity for a 9.2% APR college loan.
Yeah, and it's worth that debt to take on so that she can pursue a non-traditional lifestyle and not be able to raise a family herself. So, yeah, we're going to make it work out. Don't worry.
Yeah, it'll be fine. You're right. I was overreacting, She's guilty, but she will owe the Jew money. That's true.
Yeah, well, we owe everyone money. I mean, if I could solve it all by, just shooting myself in the head, I would do that, but I worry that...
Oh, dark turn.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But, because really that wouldn't be giving back to, the Black community. And I need to work really hard for that. I need to pay my taxes and keep it going as long as I can.
This is the point, I guess this is something, not to close the conversation, but to close the part of our talk about the debate here, at least. I basically view this... If it doesn't stop, and I'm an optimist. I think we'll be fine in the end. White America will survive, but I basically view it like, okay, you guys got rid of white people in general got rid of slavery. Americans a bit later. I don't agree with slavery at all. I don't know anyone who does. Got rid of slavery, and then the blacks themselves, as FTN pointed out, and I didn't know. When they were, and I knew that they made up a huge portion of the legislatures after the Civil War, they passed a huge chunk of the segregation laws. They proposed and passed them, the blacks themselves, because they didn't want anything to do with whitey. So the blacks passed these laws on their own, for which whitey then has to atone. Whitey then spends every year since 1965 or whatever, and you guys shill out $21 trillion to try to establish economic equality. It doesn't work, of course. So now tax dollars aren't enough. You need to cut them a check directly. Well, the step after that is, okay, the direct reparations didn't work. Now you have to give them your shit. Okay, well, giving them your shit didn't work. Now you have to give them... Now we get to South Africa where you have to give them your property. Because only by giving them physical property can things be equal. And from there, you quickly spiral into nothing will ever be equal as long as the white people are around, therefore they have to go. And you can infer what you will from that.
Yeah, and once the white people are gone, assuming that this would work out on a more macro level like South Africa, but if what happened in the Caribbean and some of the smaller colonies, could it all be, an example to be followed? The mixed race populations are then turned on by the more pure black elements, and so they have to go then.
Well, there can be no vestige of whitey at the end of the day.
Well, it's true hate, because when you're talking about, like, say, someone who's 100% black versus someone who's 50% black, and the black people, they just start to look at this person who, perhaps in some ways is more attractive, or is able to do things that they can't do, or for whatever reason, or even if they're not, they'll just look at this person with kind of hate, and they'll want them gone, and that's tends to be what happens.
Well, yeah, they have the mixed and the solid blacks right now have solidarity generally against whitey, but you are correct. When whitey is gone, the solid black population can't have any vestige of whitey. These people have white genes and are therefore oppressing them in some way or shape or form, and they have to go.
I basically see that as the inevitable conclusion in the United States. Europe is a bit more, some countries Islamic domination, some countries just mixed out of existence. But America, I basically see going the way of South Africa, Rhodesia, and eventually Haiti.
Well, I think it's really hard to tell because I know on small scale, what happens is ethnic cleansing by the dominant race, and when I mean dominant, I mean if you're talking about a broken down order, so there's no military or no military capable of being active beyond a basic level. The dominant force will then be whoever's most numerous and most determined. And we have yet to see what will happen on various macro scales. South Africa is perhaps a bit different because it is in Africa, and so blacks can just flood in and have flooded in from the rest of the continent. But in the U.S.,
they're flooding into the U.S. I mean, have you heard there are now like 5,000 Africans a day or a week crossing the border?
Oh, yeah.
people from the frickin' Congo and Gabon and Equatorial Guyana and all of these places in the middle of frickin' Africa who are somehow, some way, despite living in mud shacks in their home countries, are getting phones, money, and resources to fly to Mexico and cross the border.
Yeah, nothing to see there. It's
nothing to see there.
That's just how that's just how things are. But with I would say that perhaps the U.S. might go toward a Brazilian kind of. This is something that we've heard for years on the far right or whatever. That the U.S. will go the way of Brazil in terms of race mixing and just general. I'm trying to be polite because I have respect for a lot of Brazilians, but there is definitely a large mongrel element there, and that's Brazil's very interesting. So the majority is mixed people, and then they have geographic far spin-offs. So like the north, their farthest, like the east tip of Brazil, there's a clump of states, and then there's a big state south of that clump, full of like full-on blacks. And then you have the Amazon, which is full-on Amerindians, and then you have the very three south states are full of and I've been in the area, they're like totally white people. Totally white. I mean, you see mixed people who come from other areas of Brazil, but these are totally white people. A lot of them still speak German and Italian, and it's really quite interesting. But then the whole middle of the country in the major metropolitan areas and Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro and Brasilia are all mongrelized, mixed soup. But there's a bit of a cultural difference because it's so Latin. The blacks there, they don't want to be black, but in the U.S. they kind of, I don't know if they want to be black or not, but if they don't want to be black, that's on a mostly subconscious level outside of Turning Point, USA, in which case they want to be white, but they'll practically be explicit about it. But I think that blacks in the U.S. Are more okay with being black so long as they can bring everyone else down.
Well, see, this is the reason I've never envisaged Brazilianization for America, is because the racial animus and the hate and the violence already is so high and so prominent. I don't see how you get all these brown people to calm down and just accept Brazilianization when they could just get rid of whitey. Yeah,
well, the only thing would be if the Latinos took over and then a different dynamic took place. But
that is kind of likely. I mean,
the
blacks so mad.
See, that's why I was talking last time about if we, I mean, as long as we have to operate within democracy, if we could just like get all the whites and blacks on the same side against Latino, even then it looks pretty grim. I don't know. It's a mess. I'll try to be. Well, what's the thing Guillaume Fay said? He said, "I am a pessimist and I am a realist. Therefore, I am an optimist." And that's kind of where I'm coming from. I have to try to believe in some kind of future for our people.
Exactly. I mean, you have to believe, if not in the exact future you want, you have to believe in trying to achieve a future, which is something I firmly believe in. I just totally lost my train of thought there. I had a comment to make.
That happens.
There was something else I wanted to talk about on the show, and I can't remember for the absolute life of me.
Did it have to do with the debate?
No, it didn't actually. But oh well, it doesn't matter. I did want to comment on this, the interesting phenomenon going on in Congress right now. Have you seen the absolute destruction that the Jews are bringing upon Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez right now?
Not specifically. I mean, I know a lot of people are reacting against her, and it's what's amazing to me is just how much attention she's gotten. I think if she was like ugly, and some people think she's ugly anyway, but I'd argue she's attractive in a way. If it wasn't for her looks, I don't think she'd be getting any of this attention. But
she called the migrant detention camps concentration camps, and
okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. The survivors came out and started making videos.
Yes, they did. They are so mad. They are so pissed. Articles, videos, soldiers from World War II. I mean, it is like a full-on take-down AOC campaign. They are so...
She's taking on the boomers by herself,
She is. The boomers and the Jews are so pissed. They are so pissed. And it is so funny. It's amazing how white people, we can't have anything. Chernobyl, that Chernobyl show, which I watched, and I thought it was pretty okay. There have been like 2 or 3 articles now about how the Chernobyl show opens old wounds for the Jewish community. Like, we get nothing. White people get absolutely nothing. Not history, not fairy tales, not our own countries. We get jack shit. And if you defend anything that's ours, you are a racist. But the Jews vehemently defend things as if they are exclusively Jewish. Concentration camps are only Jewish, and only Jews have ever been put in concentration camps, and don't you dare say otherwise.
Well, what are we supposed to make of this? I mean, it's like there's no good side in this. There's Ocasio. I mean, I guess I'd side with the Holocaust survivors on this because at least in theory they would be against open borders or something. I don't know.
You're giving the Jew a lot of credit, but it's so fun. I'm pretty sure the same people who would like stand there and protest these migrant detention camps would be like, this is immoral. And then if you walked up and you went, it's a concentration camp, they would all turn to you and go, no, it's not. No, the cognitive dissonance is so entertaining.
Yeah,
this is immoral, but it's not a concentration camp. Concentration camps are only for Jews. Don't you steal our history.
I mean, the Holocaust gets mentioned, and these people just like rise up from out of like the muck or something. Like it's like where do these people come from?
This goes back to my boomer family member in Israel, right? We got into this dialectic, and I made the comment. I said, America. I didn't argue. I didn't like make any Jew comments. I didn't talk about conspiracy, anything like that. I tried to be as absolutely normie with this as possible. And I made the comment, I'm like, why are American men dying for a foreign land
that does nothing for the United States. And her immediate response is like, it was like the most stereotypical boomer thing I have ever encountered, which was, number one, aside from the Christian Zionism, which she is huge on, America's Israel's only friend. They're the only democracy in the region. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't see how being a democracy is a qualification for American support.
Yes, America, it's a false idol of democracy. Like, democracy is shit.
It is a false idol. America's greatest ally is the Wahhabi terror state of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, democracy is kind of suffering there, They're like beheading people in the town square and stuff. Like, I mean, I don't know. It's democracy it's shit, and it's even bad I would say it's even bad in a homogenous society, a racially homogenous society, let alone one where you have all these different races and cultures competing against each other. Oh, there was one last thing I wanted to mention about the debates, and this was, we had talked about this briefly, but you know how we still feel safe, and I say we in terms of like normie or whatever. Normie still feel safe saying that, I think English should be the only language spoken in the United States, or should be the main language. It's the most weak-kneed form of ethno-nationalism, or even racial nationalism, to be found. And really, if you boil it down, they can't defend this, because if race doesn't matter, then language shouldn't matter. That's the thing about the racial argument, is if you can't make the racial argument, you lose everything.
You are right. I remember you making this comment in Skype, and I totally 100% agree. It is the most weak-kneed racial response, and I don't think these people realize it's racial necessarily, but it's just a gut response. We speak English in America.
Yeah, so you have people like Donald Trump Jr., who, by the way, this last week was tweeting how he's glad that James Fields will never see the light of day, and got 417 years for this 20-year-old guy who was under attack. But yeah, so base Don Jr. there, but at the same time, he's saying things like, he was big on making fun of the Democratic debate for having all this Spanish stuff, and it's like, if you're going to criticize them for speaking Spanish, what are you criticizing exactly? Are you criticizing them for being Latino? I mean,
it's the kosher sandwich at work.
They think there's because it's language and not race, that it's somehow different. I don't know, that it falls into the ideals category or something.
Well, it does. It's really weak-kneed. They don't realize it's a racial defense, even though I believe inherently it is a racial defense. And they just spit it out without thinking, because it's really the last thing they feel acceptable saying.
Yeah, exactly. It's all they have left, and they haven't even thought about why, and they don't realize that it's not gonna stick. They're losing in that fight because they're not willing to say what's really going on. I mean, why should we not speak Spanish? Maybe we should just all speak Spanish. Like, what's your problem? Are you racist or something?
Right, exactly. It's a very, unfortunately, it's a very easy position to destroy. It's extremely easy, because you respond, well, why can't I speak Spanish? And then they'll tell you, well, this is America. We've always spoken English. We speak English. And, even if I was going to tear down this argument, I would simply say, so because a lot of, 20% of the population speaks Spanish now. So you're being racist?
It's better business to be able to be bilingual, at least.
Get excited for next job. Learn Spanish. Get excited for next job.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's assumed that everyone knows English, and if you don't speak English, yeah, that will be a disadvantage at this point. But if you know English and Spanish, you're set. So you have a major hiring preference in a lot of places if you speak Spanish.
Well, eventually, I think eventually it's going to become like Canada with the French. You know, the Quebecois, who are very ethnocentric, as a matter of fact, and they've actually been making Quebec whiter. Amazingly, the government of Quebec is doing some really great things. Whatever it can as a provincial government.
Good for them.
I'm a big fan of what they're doing up there in Quebec. But, and this is something I agree with the rest of Canada on, Quebec language cucks everyone. Everyone in all of Canada has to learn French. Every province has bilingual road signs in certain places, bilingual school books in certain districts. Even if there aren't French people there, Quebec language cucks everyone. National debates, the politicians basically have to speak French in the debates, so you have this weird mix of languages. It's very frustrating for someone who's an Anglo-Canadian, and that's basically what America is going to become. You're going to have states like California, which is now almost 60% Hispanic, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado. You're going to have these states where soon, within probably 20 years, Spanish will be the majority language. They'll start operating in Spanish, and all of a sudden the entire country from sea to shining sea needs to learn Spanish to have any idea what's going on in that area of the country.
Well, if you don't, first of all, it's not good business. And as we know, money matters more than anything. So
be loyal to your economic unit, Rapture.
Yeah. Well,
I live in my economic unit, and I hate your economic unit.
And we'll compete. We'll compete with each other by having imported black athletes play sports ball against each other.
Yes, my sports ball team,
to determine who wins in the end.
My sports ball team is better than your sports ball team, and if that's not enough, it's easier to do business in my unit than it is to do in your unit. Therefore, you should move to my unit and be proud to be from here.
Yeah, I should. That's a good idea. Although it's hard for people of my skin color to do. I have to really get my ducks in a row. So.
Yeah, good luck.
All right, well, we've been talking for a while, so this is going to be a massive file. So I should go ahead and wrap this up. Sound good? Anything else you wanted to say? Could you remember your last point? Or
No, I actually don't remember what I was about to say, which is perfectly fine. I will let the audience know that our third host of the main show of the Politics of Three, Mr. Ted Buziak, has returned. He was dealing with some not emergency, anything personal stuff, just pieces of life that he had to deal with. So he is back. We've been talking about getting another main show out. We don't know exactly when we're going to do that. Rapture and I work, family. We do have busy lives most of the time. So do look forward after this to another main installment of the Politics of Three, probably within the next week, 2 weeks.
Yeah, sounds good. And it'll be interesting to do battle with Ted again.
It is always fun, We all here on Midnight Mutterings, we always try to talk until we have no more logs for the fire, and we have run out. And because we're both lazy bastards, we're not going to go get more, and we're going to call it a night.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, we've covered a lot. I had a lot of fun with this talk, and hopefully the audience did too. All right. Well, we will catch you next time on either the Politics of Three or Midnight Mutterings. Have a good night.